So I think it would not be an efficient use of time to start talking about that here and now, because there are some points that I want to say that are directly relevant to the United Nations and to world culture. And maybe the most concrete way to say it is that this is probably the first time, in fact it is the first time in my entire life that I ever sat on a panel outside of specialty conferences that are just about consciousness, which are considered very marginal and do not have mainstream acceptance. This is the first elite location probably that has ever occurred where people like this can sit in front of an audience like this and say what we've said about how the fact that materialism is not true and the mind as a non-material force through focused attention can change the brain. It is radically new that we can sit here and tell you this. It has never happened before. And I want to stress another point. It's really, I can't, you know, seeing Leo DiCaprio, who I worked extremely closely with, I mean, again, if I had the time, even just that one scene that they showed of, he was portraying Howard Hughes, a man whose life was ruined by obsessive compulsive disorder, and we spent hours and hours and hours just on that one little segment that you just watched, working together to get all the nuances right, and I wish I had the time to tell you more about that, and then how Martin Scorsese synergized the process. And it was a very, very interesting thing. And again, I'm just so happy that you could see that little piece of that. And maybe I'll tell one fast anecdote about Leo DiCaprio that'll kind of lead into where I'm going here, which and really does make the point. Leo DiCaprio so immersed himself into that role. And on the other, there's another 15-minute video after this one that you saw in which I talk about Mario's work in terms of how the mind can change serotonin and how actors, when they portray a role, actually change how their neurochemistry works. And he did this spectacular work in his laboratory showing that when actors portray a role, they change how the serotonin in their brain works. And to bring that point home to real life, Leo DiCaprio so immersed himself in this role to portray it and worked so closely and was so dedicated. I mean, the nuances that he wanted to integrate into the performance, and that I very much believe he did integrate into the performance, resulted in the fact that for 3 months after the filming was stopped, he could not stop having obsessive compulsive disorder. So he actually induced in his own brain a transient case of obsessive compulsive disorder, which took several months for him to sort of recover from. And if that doesn't tell you how powerfully the mind can affect the brain and how much an actor can immerse themselves in a role, that it takes 3 months after the shooting is done to get out of the role and stop having obsessive compulsive thoughts, feelings, and symptoms, that is I think itself is just a very, very powerful way of understanding how much focused attention can change the brain. And